2015. We're going to start off with our Secretary Pro Tem, Mr. Richard Haig, by taking a roll call, please.
Mark Berry.
Present.
Leanne Charlotte.
Present.
Julie Gotcho. Absent. Richard Haig, present. John Rosen.
Present.
Susan Ryder.
Present.
All right.
All right, so we have a quorum. We're ready to begin, and we're going to begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. And I would ask all the students in the audience if you guys can stand up and start us off and lead us in the pledge, okay? Ready?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Fantastic, thank you. We will go right to our opportunity for public comment. The first thing we do in every meeting is if somebody from the audience would like to address the board and make a comment, please do so. Come to the podium, state your name, and speak as you would like to. If not, we're going to move right on to our recognition.
Addition of discussion item.
Okay, I thought we were going to skip that. Okay. And then the other thing we often do, we always do, is give the board opportunity to add a discussion item to tonight or to recommend an opportunity, an agenda item for the future. So if anybody on the board would like to, as an agenda item they want to raise for now or in the future, please let us know. We have a project that we are in the process of working on. We call it the enrollment project, where we're looking at the history of the trends. That unfortunately the meeting has been posed. It's going to be meeting this week, and we've had to push it back an additional week, but that is coming, we promise. Anybody else? All right, so now we're going to go to our recognition, and students from the middle school who competed in the Odyssey of the Mind will be recognized. And so Mr. Blackmore, the principal at the middle school, is going to introduce that.
Thank you. Very excited to have a group of students here who represented Lake Bluff Middle School at the Odyssey of the Mind regional competition. And if you don't know much about Odyssey of the Mind, I imagine you'll get a nice taste of it this evening. I'm going to actually turn things over to Mr. and Mrs. Jaxie, who are helping to coordinate things from the building level. So, Mr. and Mrs. Jaxie.
Thanks, Mr. Blackmer. I'm really going to turn things over to my wife, who served as a volunteer for Odyssey of the Mind. The program started this fall based on a conversation that Dr. Sophie and I had in the office. There was some interest by Kate Amaral and others to develop this program, and I overheard her talking about Odyssey of the Mind. I knew that my wife had competed in Odyssey of the Mind when she was in middle school, and I thought this would be an exciting endeavor. And here we find ourselves. So I'm really going to turn things over to Sydney Jaxie, who will talk more about this. But just a big thank you to all of the parent volunteers, the parents that have opened their homes for kids to meet in multiple times a week to construct things and get messy while they're making different projects. Has really been tremendous. So very much appreciative to our community members. I'll turn things over to my wife.
So this fall, we set out with 19 students to work through Odyssey of the Mind problems. Odyssey of the Mind is a creative problem-solving organization, and it gives kids of all ages from 3rd grade through college the opportunity to work on their creative problem-solving skills as well as teamwork and just higher-level thinking opportunities for them outside of what they're exposed to in the classroom. So we had middle schoolers that were involved this year, and they worked from the fall up through March to go to their regional competition in the state, and we had 3 of our 4 teams qualified to go to the international competition next month at Michigan State University, and we are very excited about that. 2 of our teams are going and very excited to represent Lake Bluff at the world level, as well as while we were at our competition, everyone there as part of the state organization was very impressed with the creativity of our students and just their ability to think on their feet. All of our students did phenomenally well in their spontaneous problem, which was a problem that they had no idea going into, and they all placed very high with those skills, which just speaks very highly of the preparation they get within their school day outside of what we do at Odyssey of the Mind. So I'm going to ask the kids to come up and tell you about what they worked on all year. Go ahead.
They'll come up by teams.
Okay, so I'm Josh Daly.
I'm Sydney Wang. And I'm Megan Wong.
And the other members of our team are Whitney Wisniewski, Megan Garrity, and Jenna Newby. And our problem was the silent movie problem. And we had to create and act out a silent movie, a scene where a critic judged that silent movie, a scene where the director talked about the silent movie, and a fake trailer for another movie. And we placed third in our competition. So, thank you.
Hi, I'm Peyton Marzella.
I'm Tierney Sasson.
I'm Natalie Waite. And I'm Samantha Wong. We did the Odyssey of the Mind runaway train problem.
And what we had to do was we had to build a track, a train, and obstacles for the train to get over.
We also had to write a script and build props to go along with our problem. Odyssey of the Mind was a really fun educational experience for everyone. Hi, I'm Hannah Biankowski. I'm Avina Burns.
And I'm Emily Hart, and our other members of our team who couldn't make it today is Emily Chang and Chase Ruprecht. And our problem for the competition was laser marbles, and we had to make a structure out of balsa wood that could hold the highest weight possible whilst releasing 5 marbles as each weight was put on. And we placed second in our competition, but we could not make it to world finals. So.
I'm Ryan McFadden.
I'm Torsten Borowski. I'm Tyler McFadden.
And I'm Ryan Devine.
So our problem was runaway train as well as theirs, and so like theirs, you had to create a self-contained propulsion system to go along with the vehicle you also created by yourself to complete a series of obstacles. So like that was a challenge to find a way to not use electricity to make a propulsion system for that vehicle. So we placed first in our competition, and we will be competing in the international competition. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And again, thank you to our parent volunteers. Thank you, Mr. and Mrs. Jaxie. And just so you know, they didn't really know what they were going to be saying before they arrived tonight. And I think this is a good example of their ability to improv right there, right before your very eyes. So thank you very much. Thank you, kids. You're welcome to stay all night if you want. But this is your opportunity to exit if you want.
I have a couple comments, though, before they leave. We all wish you best wishes on your international competition. And part of our goal, and Mr. Jackson and I have talked about it, is that you need to come in and share with our 6th graders and 7th graders next year your experience, so we can offer this to a lot more students next year. We really need to give Mrs. Amaral, Mr. and Mrs. Jackson, and all of the parents a big hand. We couldn't have done it Parents, I thought I'd share with you that my neighbors across the street have 31-year-old twins that were in Odyssey of the Mind in junior high. They just now threw out all their supplies that were down in their basement. So I know how much there is. We thank you. We cannot wait to get pictures and updates from all of you when you're competing. And my goal would be to try to get this competition eventually in Lake Bluff, because I think it'd be great to have it here.
One last comment too. I was going to say this a little later on the president's report, but it probably is more fitting now to just recognize both the PTO and the Alliance who helped fund some of this, as I understand, and really appreciate all the help that was offered from those organizations. And again, shout out to Mr. and Mrs. Jackson for making this thing happen. That's really cool. So thank you very
I
much.
would just like to add that my son, my oldest son, actually built the balsa wood bridge in high school. I didn't think it would hold anything, and he ended up winning first place. And today, years later, he's a PhD in science. So that kind of stimulated him to move forward with his career.
So great job. And if you want to stay, you can. Otherwise, we're going to go to some not so exciting stuff.
They are going to Michigan State, but people from Singapore and China are flying in. Singapore, China, I think India. Thank you. Boy, that's going to be a large one. Move this along. I gotta tell you, it's such a great opportunity. It really. Yeah. I'm hoping we're, and notice how many girls there are in this group.
Yeah.
Nate and Margaret, are you presenting together or separately this evening? Okay, they're presenting together tonight.
All right, so we're going to go to our report section, and combining items A and 7A and B, the elementary and the middle school report, are our principals, Mr. Nate Blackford, Mr. Nate Blackford and Miss Margaret Sinclair.
Thank you. Well, we're going to talk together because I know that part of some of the conversations that Dr. Sophie may be bringing to the board for discussion is about attendance and tardies, and so she had asked us to present some of our kind of building level data to you tonight. And so I'm going to go ahead and just not being all that specific, certainly not mentioning names, but we'll talk about attendance, and the data that I'll provide tonight is just for those who have missed full days of school. This doesn't include a student who may be there for a half a day, but we're highlighting for you any student and the amount of students that have been absent so far 8 days or more. At the middle school, that's 80 students, and that ranges all the way from 8 to a lot more, up into the 30s and 40s. So that's full days of school. And then as you look at tardies, this again includes students who are arriving late to school, and does not, in our building, include students who are coming late with an excuse. In other words, a parent coming in and signing them in. This is just those students who are coming without a parent signing them in at the door. So this is for 10 or more. We have 28 students who've got 10 or more tardies this year. On the high end is in the 30s and the 40s.
So 28 individual students?
Right.
And what was the 30s and 40s?
So
One of those could have been 30 or 40.
So right, when we're talking about for a full days, anyone missing 8 or more days.
Right.
So we had 80 students that have missed 8 or more days. On the high end, we've had some students who have missed as many as 30 or 40 days. And then on the high end in tardies, 30 or 40 tardies.
And when you're counting,
Go ahead.
when you're saying kids that have been absent, they were sick and had an excuse, or all reasons, or
So
what's
right, for this purpose, we're sharing. We didn't delineate the
Like
reason
why?
for that.
Okay.
It's just the number. In most of those where the numbers are really high, it's not all illness. There's often vacation in there or some other reason for missing school. but no, there isn't a breakdown.
So 180 days of school, roughly, right?
76 days.
It's 176, and only 28 times kids were tardy?
No,
8 kids were
28
tardy.
kids.
So
have been-
multiple
excuse me,
times.
28 kids have been tardy to school 10 or more times.
Okay.
I think the other part I want to point out is the days more than 8 is significant because the law in Illinois has changed. And the law says that kids must be in school. They cannot miss more than 5% of the days, which is 8 or 9. So we have, and when you hear the numbers, and you heard Nate's, wait till you hear the elementary schools, we have a number of kids that aren't really meeting state law. And that's very concerning because it has a huge impact, which Margaret and Nate are going to talk about.
And does it tend to be the same kids?
The tardies and the absence, you mean?
When you
I'm
see
more
the
concerned-
list,
yeah.
because we had it printed, we had it run for say 8 or more. So, right, that list is pretty consistent because if the students all had at least 8 or higher, so those are repeaters. Obviously, the kids who have just missed 1 or 2, they didn't show up on that kind of heavy hitter.
But we have
list.
800 or so kids,
Right.
and I'm just, the question is, are the 28 who are tardy the same 28, or is it scattered among the 800 kids?
Don't forget, he's just reporting on the middle school.
Right, I know
Margaret still
that.
hasn't
No, I know
reported.
that. Well,
It's only 300.
300 and so on.
So right, so if you're looking at tardies, 28 kids have been to school late 10 or more times.
Right.
So the names don't repeat. That's 28 individual
Unique
students who've
kids.
been late 10 or more
Okay.
times. If I were to extrapolate down to a smaller number, that would pick up more kids,
Okay.
obviously. And then the 80 represents 80 kids in the building who have been absent from school 8 or more times.
Are you asking about the overlap between those two groups?
No, I think you answered my question.
So I'm sorry, there may be names that appear on,
Yeah, no, I understand.
but they're two different measures.
And are there any current consequences for these kids? Or their parents?
We're
I
going to
should
talk
say?
about
We're gonna
that.
talk about
next.
that.
We'll talk about that next. Yeah.
So at Lake Bluff Elementary School, we have a bigger population, so we're at a little bit over 500 students. And so for absences, we had 202 students have missed 8 or more days. And our range of absences is anywhere from that 8 all the way up to 46 days being absent. And again, like when you asked about reasons, those reasons could vary right now. What we're hoping to do is kind of start narrowing things down. If if it's illness and it's a repeated illness or there's a doctor's note, that should be coded differently than just an unexcused absence. For tardies at Lake Bluff Elementary School, 76 students had 10 or more tardies. So really, in my mind, that's like so far 760 tardies out of those students alone. The range there was between 10 times of being tardy up to 70 times being tardy. So that's really every other day that a couple particular students are tardy. So the implications we'll both talk about. At Lake Bluff Elementary School, the implications, they're always missing the same chunk of the day. And for us, that's kind of the setting time, the setting of the tone in the classroom and in the school. So I know we've talked about capturing kids' hearts here, but that's when the teacher greets the students, the teacher shakes every student's hand, they come in, they hear all about their schedule for the day, and they have that kind of culture building time, which is sharing good news in the morning meetings. So those students are missing that many times, so almost every day. In addition to that, there's a lot of disruption because students, it depends on how late they are, they may miss the same subject, likewise at the middle school, that many times. And so there's going to be a gap that happens with their skills, or they are late to a special class because at our building those happen at pretty much the same times every day.
What time are they considered late?
8:05 is
8:05.
when we take attendance.
And what time do you lock the door?
The door's always locked, but we always let kids in.
But the kids can flow freely. I know when I go to the school, I have to go through the system.
Right. At 8:05, the doors close,
Okay.
and then they get a pass to go to class after that, and that's
So
considered
all
tardy.
these kids that are tardy require a pass to go to class.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes. So the other implications are just our office staff. We really have to have a second person in our office all the way till 8:30, where Alice just is not able to cover the students coming in, as well as the other duties that happen in the morning. So that's another implication, but my biggest concern is that culture building time and missing the same instructional period every day.
And the same is true at the middle school. When you have students arriving in our building, however, the doors open for students to flow into the building at 8:25, giving them 5 minutes to get to their lockers and to advisory. 8:30 is when we lock the front door, and any student arriving after 8:30 has to then get a pass from the office. Same thing, we have to put twice as many staff up in the office in order to write all the passes and get the lunch orders taken care of. If we've received their lunch order already and they're just walking in the door, we're going to have to take that lunch order in the office. And they're missing valuable time. They're missing things that are going on in their advisory. For some of those kids, if they're receiving morning interventions, reading or math support, they're missing that time as well. And so it is disruptive, of course, to have all of these things that you as a teacher and advisory need to accomplish before the end of a 20-minute period, and then you have students trickling in your door who need that same information probably repeated to them, and certainly stop doing what you're doing to greet them. They usually, it's a disruption to have kids coming in late. The other piece, of course, is when you're looking at students who are approaching a third of their school year that they've missed because of absences. The academic impact is tough to deny. There are definitely meetings where I'm sitting with parents and we're talking about accommodations and modifications and ways to support them academically. And I have to say, there's little we can do that will be successful until we can have your child attending school on a regular basis. And I think that's also really worth mentioning. Frankly, if they could miss a third of their school days and still be successful in school, I'd suggest we weren't doing our jobs.
What percentage of our kids currently take the bus? Do we know?
I don't have a good number off the
It's a
top of
good
my
question.
head.
We'll get that.
That's a good question.
Because I understood that this problem with particularly the lateness got a lot better when we had the buses free.
Jay, you have any sense for?
I'm just trying to think how we would get that information.
Well,
People are put on a route, like whether they get on the bus or not.
yeah.
Track.
Our buses in general are arriving on time, so the students coming in late are not those that are the busing.
Right. I think we just have to count the number of kids that are assigned to a bus.
Yeah.
Well, but they're all
But I-
assigned to the bus.
No.
And then I heard the question, what do we currently do about it, John asked. Currently, the information is communicated on a report card. Teachers would speak with parents at parent-teacher conferences. In a couple of our more extreme cases, we have contacted the ROE. They have their Project Pass, which helps with an intervention. But what we have found is, as a district, we don't really have a set of policies or a framework to work with, and so we really wanted to. We'll be talking about that a little bit more. We've been talking as an administrative team about maybe some guidelines and boundaries that we can use, so that we know when to use, when we should intervene, how we should intervene, and then when we would contact the ROE, because we want to be consistent so that the community understands what the expectation is and kind of knows what those boundaries are.
Have we surveyed other schools that have a better rate, a bit more successful rate than we do, and how they handle these things?
We have not. I can only speak to the schools that I've been at 2 other schools. We had also quite a few tardies and some absences. We did use that Project Pass pretty quickly, and we used some of the same things that we're talking about, hoping to put into place as far as number guidelines. So if you miss this many, this is what happens. But it is not a problem that's only in Lake Bluff Elementary School. So I had certainly common problems, and remember a case where when I had a student in 6th grade who missed 40 days a year, by the time you get to 6th grade, you've missed more than a full year of school. And that's really speaking to what Nate was talking about. We don't want students to start having it be so habitual that it really adds up as the years go on.
My question really gets to, I mean, it's been a problem since I went to school, but I mean, there have to be schools that have implemented programs that are maybe measure on a measured basis more successful, and whether we've actually looked at those and determined what our alternatives might be. That's where I was driving.
And I will say, one of the things when we really get into this next month, we had the regional office attendance person come out and talk to our team. And she said for this particular area on the North Shore, this is relatively common.
Really?
And it's more of the vacations and, going here or there. Whereas it's easier for them to tighten it up in some of the other districts where it's simply just a late issue.
My question was going to be, can you quantify or attempt to quantify the percentage of those absences that are related to, I'm not sure what the right word is, but vacation and those sorts of things?
Yeah, when we...
Non-essential absences,
right.
Perhaps.
All of our absences are coded based on what parents are
Tell
providing.
us.
Right, so sick, then we'll code it that way. Vacation, we'll code it that way. There's a number of things.
Doctor's appointment.
Doctor's appointments. But we put it all in there. Sometimes parents don't provide an explanation, so in that case, I'm not quite sure how we code it. I don't think we code it at all. It certainly can be quantified a bit. We can dig a little deeper to give you some better idea of how those days are being used. One of the things that I know has been past practice in the building, and probably something that is worth reevaluating, is the idea that a parent could call and request homework in advance, a prearranged absence form, we call that. And it's a difficult predicament for teachers because they're being asked sometimes a week in advance to provide a week's worth of homework or something along those lines. And the reality is we'd be giving something that the students wouldn't have been taught yet. And so teachers are cognizant of, hey, here's what I can give you. I can't give you everything because you're just not going to even know where to begin with it. And so parents sometimes can become frustrated by that. They want all of the work in advance.
And most school districts do not provide work for vacation students until after the kids have returned.
And then also you really can't replicate what's happening in the classroom. So I know both middle school and elementary, there's so much discussion, conversation, hands-on experience. So to ask for that week's worth of work, it's really not the same learning experience for the students. So that's why it's hard to provide, here's what we're doing this week, because you can't replicate what's happening in the classroom.
So, go ahead.
I was going to say, have these statistics been relatively stable over the last several years, or is this a problem that's getting worse, or perhaps better with the busing?
Yes,
that's another question we need to look
I can
into.
tell you that, without any data to support it, I don't believe that it's a new problem. I think that it has gotten a little worse. I think that it would, I couldn't tell you whether it's airfare and the attempt to avoid travel at spring break time, that we have more and more vacations occurring out of our school calendar vacation time. I think that definitely has increased.
I think our plan, this is in language arts, this would be your hook to get you all actively involved and listening. Next month at the May 12th meeting, we're going to go through the policy because you as a board really set the board policy and then we go and develop the procedures. And we already generally are very comfortable with where we want to go for attendance. But we need to have you develop the policy first, go through it, make sure you're comfortable with it. We go back and develop the procedures, then we'll bring that back to you just so that you're aware. We have a great idea of really kind of doing a lot of promotions and saying we're working on attendance and inundating parents with the facts, similar to what you've heard tonight, and all the reasons on how it impacts not only their child, but the other children in the classroom, and kind of what we're going to be doing as far as consequences per se. And I say consequences, they're really interventions. The first time, maybe you get a call from the principal. The second time, maybe you sit down and talk to the principal and say, hey, how can we help you? And you continue on with this pattern and end up with the regional office, who also will do interventions with families. But a lot of the problem here is going to be taking an absence and really labeling it something, whether it's going to be excused or unexcused. Those are big words that we're going to be revisiting next month. But this is your hook. So I think you need to know how big the problem is. What I heard, which we need to get, the percentage of kids taking the bus.
I have that.
Okay, what is that?
62% at the middle school take the bus, approximately 88% at the elementary school.
Or signed up for it,
Signed
assuming
up.
that they
Or signed up.
use it.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
And then we want to look at trends because we can go back in our computer and at least look at the past couple of years to let you know. But I think even more so as a board, as we were talking about this, I'm thinking, okay, we paid for transportation. And while we know it's helped at the elementary school, I would think that our attendance would be better with it too. So, you know, ask any questions you have, and I'm going to send you the board policy that we're going to discuss in this week's update so you can start thinking about it. But our admin team is frustrated, we're concerned, and we really need to revisit our board policy, and then we need to develop strict procedures.
So you're saying there is a board policy, but it just
Yes.
doesn't give the direction that you need it to, or?
We need to revisit it with the board so all of you are
Review it.
comfortable. I can guarantee you that whatever we do, you're going to be getting calls. Because it's going to be a major change in the community to enforce. We also, and we've talked about this, you know, we walk a fine line. We all value family time. And we all know that a lot of our working families, you can only take vacations when one of the spouses has vacation. So we're aware of that. But it's when it all adds up. Maybe you have a vacation here and 5 doctor's appointments there, and your child's a swimmer and they're being pulled every Friday for swim meets. It all adds up. And I think somewhere we have to be very careful about our kids can have gaps, but it also impacts the kids in their classrooms. All the other kids in the classroom that are there on time.
But the tardiness is another issue altogether. I mean, that can certainly be controlled better than perhaps vacations or whatever. I mean, tardiness becomes habitual after a while. And I know myself, with my 8:20 tea time, I'm getting run over by cars over there at 8:20 to get into the golf course. And I know they're going to the elementary school. So I keep saying to myself, I thought school started like at 8:05.
And
So
I
I
think
know it's a problem.
You look at the difference in the buildings because middle school, the students may be responsible for getting themselves to school by walking
Right.
or whatever, and they're
Right.
lingering. At the elementary school, it's
Right.
usually, you know, they're not getting out the door in time, and
Right.
that's either, you know, it's either something to address with
Right.
kids or
It's a
help
family issue.
families or help parents who are driving.
Any other questions? And thanks for getting the data, Kevin, too. Well, this is your hook, so start thinking about it.
Thank you. All right, item 7C, PTO report. Ann Stewart is going to update the board.
Good evening. Just a few things with regards to PTO. LBMS had Imagination Theater beginning of last week. This was a group of actors that the PTO brought in, and they presented scenes. The Imagination Theater is basically to help students work together to solve problems in a theatrical kind of a way. Also at LBMS, the PTO is very heavily involved in graduation, and as I've heard many reports so far, things are going just fine with that, and obviously the 8th graders are looking forward to that. At LBES, we are looking forward to the spring book fair. This is where the kids get to bring in their own money, they get to buy their own books without parental control on that. That will be taking place on May 27th and half day May 28th. We will be working again with the Lake Forest Bookstore, and that was a huge success in the fall, so we're looking forward to that again. And last but certainly not least, I would like to introduce Eva Rice. She has been my vice president this year, and she is taking over as president of PTO next year, so I wanted you to get to know her face a little bit and a little bit more about her. She is not new to PTO by any stretch of the imagination. She has co-chaired Pumpkin Fest for a couple of years. She's taking care of it next year as well. And she's also co-chaired the spring auction. So Eva has been integral in raising, I would say about $65,000 in her tenure thus far. She knows everyone in the community. She is very highly respected. And I kind of joke with her because her favorite saying is looking at me and going, Ann, how else may I help you? So she is just an outstanding person, and I think you will really enjoy learning more about what she has in store for PTO for next year. And she's just going to talk to you a little bit about her family life and why she's excited to be part of things.
Have big shoes to fill. I am Eva Rice. I've been in Lake Bluff for about 5 years now. I have 3 kids, one who is in pre-K, a little boy, a little girl in 2nd grade, and a son in 4th grade. So next year, all 3 of them will be at LBES for that 1 year. They'll all be in school together. So I'm very excited about that. And I'm looking forward to, seeing some of the projects that we've started, going through like the mosaic at LBES. I know Kiddos Catering is starting the new food program at LBES as well, and the Lake Bluff Middle School renovation. So these are all things I'm really looking forward to, and I'm kind of excited about seeing the big picture of how we all work together to keep District 65 an excellent school district. So I look forward to working with you guys, and if you ever have any questions for me, feel free to contact me or give me a call. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And feel free, the same is true the other way, if you need something to call us. So.
Okay, great, thanks.
So moving right along. Item 7D, the Alliance for Excellence report by Emily McBain.
Good evening. I have a few Alliance updates for tonight. Our fundraising campaign is just constantly trailing along, but in a good way. We're inching closer to our $25,000 goal. Donations are still coming in, including our corporate matches, and I would like to recognize the new architects, White & Company. They gave a very generous donation to this year's campaign. We recently approved 4 new grant requests. Odyssey the Mine, Mark, thank you for mentioning that. That we were really thrilled to fund with PTO in the district. Student scholarships for the upcoming 6th grade Springfield trip. A digital camera and zoom lens for the Lake Bluff Middle School yearbook and general student activity documentation. And a MakerBot Replicator mini 3D printer for LBMS. That was put through by Mrs. Tuig and Ms. Smith. So lots of excitement there, and we look forward to hearing about the many ways in which those grants are put to use, specifically that 3D printer, because it is so innovative. So those 4 spring grants combined with our fall grants put the Alliance grant spending this year at approximately $22,000. And we are still open if teachers have other ideas. The school year is obviously still in session. So most recently, we have begun our 8th grade noise award process. Thank you to Nate for spearheading the student nomination for that. That is an 8th grade award where the students do nominate each other, and then they have the option to proceed with the process, which includes putting together a resume, getting a letter of recommendation, and then doing a presentation to the Alliance Board. That is coming up on May 21st. And the criteria for that award, we're looking for students who demonstrate strengths in citizenship, attitudes, service, leadership, and academics. Dr. Edward Noyes, one of District 65's former superintendents who lives in Libertyville, will be coming to the awards assembly on the 21st to help present that award. And lastly, we are actively recruiting our new board members for Alliance. Wendy White will be taking over the president's position, and she will be coming to the May meeting where I will introduce her to all of you. So, thank you very much.
Thanks for your help. Okay, moving to item 7E, Director of Finance and Operations, Mr. Jay Kahn will give us an update on some mysterious new bank accounts we found.
So I just wanted to let you know of 2 small funds that I have found that I would like to close out for this year. We have a Martin Rosenthal Fund, which was established in memory of Mr. Rosenthal, a former board member, created to assist exceptional students in finding ways by providing supportive services they would not otherwise receive through other channels. It was started in 1978 and has been dormant for many, many years. It has $2,000 in it. And we would like to close out this fund and use the money for the purposes that were originally intended, most likely to buy hearing aids or hearing devices for some of our impaired students.
How long has it been since we touched that fund?
Probably maybe the early 90s. It's hard to find records of financial spending. Now it is actually registered as an official 501c3 corporation and an Illinois corporation, so that's been renewed every year at nominal expense, but nobody's touched the money, and it's just kind of been continually rolled over as a CD and not done anything with. So.
That big interest.
Yes. And then the other is a similar Polly McQueen Memorial Tutoring Fund, which was established in the memory of Polly McQueen, a former math teacher at Lake Bluff Junior High, established for tutoring purposes for families financially unable to meet those needs. And that has $1,350 in it. And that also has been dormant for many years, probably into the early 2000s. I have some bank accounts, but there has been no activity in it. So both of these accounts will likely need to bring a declaration for approval to the board to officially declare them dissolved and to note what we're doing with the proceeds of the funds.
Jay, do we have to contact their family members too? Do we know if we can find their family members?
I don't know. If we could find them, I suppose we could call them and let them know that
We'll ask some of
we're
our
going to be
historians.
using the money in the spirit in which it was given, and that there have been no contributions or withdrawals for many, many years. So.
I mean, legally, you just have to use the money for the purpose it was intended.
Right. I mean, and I did speak with our attorneys. Closing a 501c3 corporation, there's a couple of legal things that need to happen, and he's going to prepare those documents for us, and then we'll take care of that.
And hopefully they'll charge us less than the fund.
Well,
yeah.
It wasn't elaborate. It was set up like officially with the big. There are bylaws that are many pages, and it's a lot of effort and work to go through for. At this point, for that to continue to do that for that sum of money.
The 501c3, you have to have board members and a director and stuff. So
It's been.
does that exist? Because I'm assuming we just stopped paying for it. Like, why do we have to invest time and money in anything else?
Well,
Let it go.
just legally we need to. It's been renewed.
But we're not in charge of a 501c3.
The officers are the superintendent and Marilyn
Really?
Rowland and Jane. That's how it was renewed.
Got it.
So.
Now I understand. It's all clear. I didn't know I was an officer. See? Okay.
All right.
And that's the end of my report.
Thank you. So we're going to move on to 7F, and that would be Dr. Kevin Rubenstein, the Director of Student Services, Technology, and Assessment, will give us an update.
I'm going to give you an update tonight on our technology plan and the work of our technology team over the course of this school year. We've been meeting pretty regularly since October, November of this school year, which has been really great. We've got appropriate representation from teachers, staff, administrators. John has been joining us, and we also have some parents. We began our work by talking about a technology vision and mission statement, doing some backwards mapping after doing a self-evaluation tool from the International Society for Technology Educators. We have been working with SinglePath, who are our technology partners, more recently, and we are coming to the point where we are looking at devices moving forward and making some other big picture decisions. Should everybody have printers in their classroom? Should we continue with the current models of what we're using in terms of technology one-to-one at both the middle school and elementary school, and what that looks like financially moving forward. So I appreciated John's presence on that committee, and I think that, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's been helpful for the teachers to get to know a board member, and for a board member to get to know some teachers in a little bit of a different way.
And I thought that we had a pretty robust discussion regarding not only how technology can be used, but how we can measure its benefits in the classroom, whether the outcomes really indicate whether whatever technology we're using actually advance students. And that's a difficult thing to do from a data perspective, but it's been an interesting discussion. I think we made some progress.
Right. We have been talking about this SAMR model. SAMR is an acronym: substitution, augmentation, modification, and redefinition. And it is hard for me to even remember those things, but it is a newer model that is sort of looking at the impact that teachers have on student learning based on that model, and what teachers are doing with the technology. But as with all bits of technology, everything is constantly changing, and what we can know and measure now isn't necessarily what we can know and measure 3 days from now or a year from now, and so we're constantly evolving.
And my understanding is when you're done with your work, we'll have a little bit better idea and a plan for technology for at least the next 3 years, which will help in projections also. So.
And moving on, so any questions for Dr. Rubenstein? So moving on to the President's report, I pretty much spilled the beans earlier. I just wanted to thank the PTO and the Alliance again for their support of Odyssey of the Mind. That is a wonderful thing. We'll be talking a little while about our board vacancy. We'll highlight some of the issues there. And that's really it. I don't really have much for the board president report tonight. So moving on to the superintendent's report.
I just wanted to say once again, what a phenomenal musical we had this past weekend. I know several of you were able to attend that. Such gifted kids we have. It was just phenomenal. One of my favorite parts is I always sit in the back on the floor, and then I can hear the elementary kids kind of talking in the back. And it's just really special. I think the fact that they can watch it, and then they have things that they aspire to. The volume of kids that participate speaks numbers, pardon the pun, to me. It's just phenomenal. So Nate, once again, thanks to your staff. Nate takes a very active role, whether it's picking up dry ice, helping with set equipment. I happened to be over there when he was on some piece of equipment that I pretended I didn't see him on because he was up really high so he could take the pictures of everyone. And everyone knows that Mr. Blackmer is a total support of everyone. So it was really cool. I also we had the Odyssey of the Mind here today, and the subject of my next newsletter is going to be several other specific clubs that we'd like to start next year, and asking parents for help with those clubs. Obviously, we first put it out to staff, teaching staff, but we have such a small staff, and we have such great, talented, and really parents that are interested in doing things with their kids, so we're going to be talking a lot more about that in the year to come. Finally, we had, which I'm not going to talk too much about, but I do want to say that we had very successful lockdown drills on Monday of this week. We had the police participated with us along with the park district. We had Kathy O'Hara came and watched from a village standpoint. Very successful. Learned a few things, and we were actually able to use our Crisis Go app, which you're starting to see pop up in press releases for other districts. It was outstanding. We learned a lot, and we're going to do some different things for practices next year. That concludes my report.
Okay, questions for Dr. Sophie? Otherwise, I'm going to move on to the discussion portion of our agenda. And item 8A, the board planning calendar, which you have in your board packet. Dr. Sophie's going to highlight plans for the May and June meetings as well as some of the summer meetings.
Actually, I'm just going to briefly mention some of the subjects for May. We already know we're going to be reviewing our absence and truancy policies. We're going to be talking about extending our custodial contract for GCA, handling all of our administrator contracts and our non-certified staff contracts, budget parameters and projections, a possible budget amendment. We're still determining that. A curriculum cycle update, like we usually do every year, some initial professional development plans for next year, an assessment update. White is going to be coming in and kind of giving an overview of what their work has been. We're going to have resolutions for those that are retiring. And I think that's probably enough. In June, we give strategic plan updates, so everybody knows where we are in our strategic planning. We get some of our mandatory reports done, like the prevailing wage resolutions, and there's some safe routes that we usually do during that meeting also. And we, once again, get into a draft budget for the 15-16 school year. So lots going on, and then we give everybody a break until the end of July when we have a short meeting, and then pick up again in August, full force.
Thank you. Any questions for Dr. Sophie on the board planning calendar? All right, so I'm going to move on to Lake Bluff Middle School renovation and funding update. Leanne and I both attended the last facility steering committee meeting, and I'll ask Leanne to get us started if she wants to highlight some of what happened in the meeting, and I can jump in as we do.
Well, thanks, Mark. And as we know, Mark and I both attend this meeting every other week, along with Dr. Sophie and people from PTO, a cross section of, we'll say, stakeholders, just to look at the progress of choosing a direction for renovations at the middle school. The architect has been coming in with some drawings and some recommendations about things that we could do, and really having everybody kind of look at those and exchange ideas about what might be workable, what might some concerns be. And so we haven't come to a conclusion yet. We're working through that, and I think we'll have something to bring to the board soon. And I don't know what the time frame is for that.
Probably the end of the month, next month.
Yeah.
I found it the last facilities, the steering committee meeting, I thought it was particularly enjoyable for me personally. It was incredibly creative. You know, the architects, when we all met as a board, I think we had 8 ideas, and then they came last week with 4, and we then gave them direction to get it down to 3 or maybe even 2 from that point. So it's really coming together. It was extremely productive. They laid everything out on the table, and there's a lot of brainstorming and kind of what if kind of conversations, and taking some of the best ideas from each of them. It was, I thought, very productive, moving in a good direction. I remember they said a couple highlights was the life study results that they did for us. They did this whole, what do they call it, the life study analysis.
Health, life safety.
Life safety analysis was, they called it better than expected. So there weren't as many issues as we had thought, which is great for a lot of reasons. They will be bringing more detailed costs to us every time we funnel this down a little bit. Right now, the options we're looking at are and this is very ballpark, but in the $4.5 to $5.5 million range for renovations for what we're looking at. And what we're looking at now ranges from a no addition scenario with it strictly dealing with the building perimeter as is, to 1 or 2 small additions for a couple of different things in the future. Another interesting point that they said was if we lean toward a no addition type of renovation, we're looking at something that is about a 16-week renovation, which is pretty manageable with very little overlap in the school year. If we get into additions, we're probably looking at 6 months plus of renovation, which I thought that was all interesting information. And like Leanne said, a tremendous cross-section of the community, including our representatives here from Alliance and PTO. We had a gentleman named Matt Kerouac in town who's involved with the village. He's an architect. Neil Dahman, who is a developer in the community. Nate Blackmer, Steve Miller, who is our own facilities guy. We had 4 people from the architect. I just thought it was a tremendously positive experience, and it's really moving in the right direction. We meet again is it this week or next week?
Mm-hmm.
This Thursday. So we're curious to see, we'll be excited to see where they take us down to 2 or 3 drawings from where we were last time.
I would also make a comment that I said we would have this tab on our website by the end of April. So what's today's date? April 28th. We have the tab, but we don't have anything underneath it yet. So I'm getting there. We have the tab set up, and now I just have to Terry's going to help me scan in the minutes so we can keep our community up to date, because we did say it would be up by the end of April. So.
Yeah. And we will have more detailed analysis of fund balance for the board at an upcoming meeting. We're still
hopefully May 12th.
Still drilling down into that a little bit.
Committee of the whole.
Yes.
All right. Any questions on the middle school renovation project? So we're going to move on to item C, board vacancy. We're just going to talk a little bit about process and logistics here. We have several applications in hand and a couple more promised. And I would like to take this opportunity to remind the community, if anybody is hovering and considering applying, your applications are due to our board clerk, Terry Simon, by Wednesday the 29th at 4 p.m.
Which is tomorrow.
That's tomorrow. All the application material is on the website. It's not that cumbersome an application. It shouldn't take you that long to put it together. So we would encourage anybody in the community who is a resident within the boundaries of Lake Bluff District 65 and feels that they're qualified to consider applying, but to do that as soon as possible.
It needs to be submitted electronically.
Yes, they're all Word documents, right, Terry? Yeah, so they can download the Word documents and then send them back up to Terry Simon. I am available for questions if anybody in the community would like to drill down and ask a few questions before they submit. I am available, so contact me through my email address, which is mbarry, B-A-R-R-Y, @lb65.org, and we can talk. I'd be glad to do that. I am available. I have some time during the day, Wednesday. So we're on target to continue with the calendar we established at our last meeting, which is we're having a meeting this Thursday evening to evaluate all the applications that we have received, to narrow that down to 3 or 4 that we will consider for interviews, as well as to determine the specific process of the interviews we're going to hold, and develop some questionnaires that we can give, some questions that we can ask of each applicant so they're all getting the same set of questions. And if we can all come prepared Thursday night with some ideas for questions, and Terry will have provided in advance everybody with copies of the applications, correct?
We'll send them out
prior to the ring, so if you can try to squeeze in some time to review them before the meeting, that'd be very helpful.
Julie, I left the applications we have so far.
So,
So any additional ones we get tomorrow, we'll be emailing you.
So I think that's everything about the process. Is there anything I've left out or any questions that anybody has? Seems to be moving along the way we would like. But I would encourage more people to apply if they're interested. Anybody else? Questions?
Once in a lifetime opportunity.
All right. So that's going to wrap up our discussions, and I am going to move to action items. And I'm just going to pause here for a second and make sure I'm going to cover everything that I need to cover. All right. So in your board packets, you all have as my screen went blank, hold on. You all have a copy of the new collective bargaining agreement with the Lake Bluff Teachers Association. That is a new 4-year agreement that would begin this July and expire in June of 2019. And this agreement has already been ratified by the teachers, and it is up to us to vote on it tonight. And I'm going to read a section of the press release that we're going to distribute to all the local media
later this evening.
And I'm not going to read the whole thing, but the section, which is probably the meat of the whole thing, which summarizes the terms of the agreement for the board and the community. You guys have heard this before, but I'm not sure everybody in the community has. So under the terms of the 4-year deal, the district teachers will receive average increases in their total compensation of 3.2% per year. This includes one-time salary adjustments in the first year designed to bring our teachers' salaries more in line with other North Shore school districts, as well as additional cost sharing for medical and dental coverage. While salaries will go up an average of 3.8% per year, employee contributions to their medical and dental coverage will double over the term of the contract, from 3% of the individual premium to 6%. This increased employee contribution helps to reduce the overall increase in total compensation to the annual rate of 3.2%. The district will realize additional savings with the elimination of a currently existing post-retirement severance payment, which will sunset at the end of this contract. The board worked very hard with a terrific bunch of people for the teachers committee, and we all worked very hard and came out of this feeling like everybody has a pretty fair deal going on here. So, unless anybody has any other questions or comments they'd like to make, I am going to find my motions page. And
while you're doing that, I just would like to make one more comment. The board also spent about an additional year researching, looking at comparables. So on top of the time that we've negotiated this year, we really started about a year ago in January doing work on this. So I really think a combination of a lot of work, developing relationships, resulted in a fair contract for both sides.
And a lot of credit goes to Dr. Sophie for developing relationships with the union that may not have existed to the extent that they do today. And if it wasn't for her hard work, then it may not have gone so smoothly. So I want to make sure that everybody's aware of how hard she worked on that. So may I have a motion to approve the collective bargaining agreement with the Lake Bluff Teachers Council beginning July 1, 2015 and ending June 30th, 2019, and is included in your board packet.
So moved. So, a second.
So John and Susan. Mr. Secretary Pro Tem, may we please have a roll call vote, please?
Mark Berry.
Yes.
Leanne Charlotte.
Yes.
Julie Gotcho.
Yes.
Richard Hank, yes. John Morrison.
Yes.
Susan Ryder.
Yes.
The motion is approved. Thank you. And big thanks to all our teachers for all the hard work they do. They deserve what they got. All right, so we're going to move on to item 9B, approval of Vision 2020 resolution. And
I'm going to make this one real easy.
I'm going to let Jean make this real easy.
Okay. I heard what all of you were saying, and I'm hoping that I can summarize this well. I think there are many, many tenets behind the Vision 2020 that we agree with. There's always some hesitancy to putting a board stamp on something with this many initiatives in it. So I think what I heard everybody say is we support many of the ideas, not necessarily to approve a resolution. We don't feel that's needed. But I do think that if there's individual pieces of legislation that are proposed that maybe we all agree with, that might be something that we want to put support in. It just depends what kind of resolution and legislation that is. So I'm going to ask that we table the approval on this topic, but I also want to really give recognition to all of our professional organizations working together on this, and then ask if you have any final comments to that.
No, thank you, Jean. I think you summarized that nicely. I think this is the right direction to the board. And I just want to reiterate again, I think there's a lot to like in the Vision 2020, a lot of tenets that sound very good to us. So I think it's a good directional piece for us.
So we agreed to table it?
So you have to have I think you have to have a motion to table it.
May I have a motion to table item C, release, item B, approval of 2020 resolution?
So moved. Second.
Second. All in favor of that tabling?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that motion is tabled for future review. Item 9C. We have a number of closed session minutes dating back to January 28th of 2014. There's a total of 14 different dates of closed session meetings that have been reviewed and are to be considered for approval and releasing. We are recommending releasing 13 of those and holding back 1. 2 of the release that would be released will be redacted. Specifically, we're suggesting we release January 28th, 2014, February 11th, 2014, February 25th, 2014, March 4, 2014, March 11, 2014 from both sessions 1 and 2, March 18, 2014, April 8th, 2014, April 22nd, 2014, April 26th, 2014, October 28th, 2014, November 18th, 2014 with portions redacted, and December 2nd, 2014 with portions redacted. and we're recommending to withhold the May 3rd, 2014 minutes. May I have a motion to release the closed session minutes as I laid out for you?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Okay, Rich, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Leanne Charlotte.
Yes.
Julie Gottschall.
Yes.
Richard Haig, yes. John.
Yes.
Susan Ryder.
Yes.
That's everybody? Yes. Motion is approved.
Barry.
Oh,
Mark Berry.
me? Yes.
Mark Berry.
Mark Berry, yes.
Berry.
Mark.
We said yes to Mark.
Even if I said no, it would still be
There's a
approved.
guy somewhere.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. I'm not worried about it. Let's see. We are now moving on to item 9D, approval of summer school fees and staffing. So this is something we discussed at our meeting of the whole, and Dr. Sophie's asking for approval of summer school fees and staffing as provided, as attached in your board packet. It was a memo by Jay Kahn
And Kevin Rose.
and Dr. Rubenstein summarizing what they're proposing. Is there any discussion or questions or clarification required? Okay, may I have a motion to approve summer school fees and staffing as presented by the administration?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, roll call vote, please, Mr. Haig.
Julie Gottschall.
Yes.
Richard Haig, yes. John Rosa.
Yes.
Susan Ryder.
Yes.
Mark Berry.
Yes.
Leanne Charlotte.
Yes.
Motion is approved. Item 9E, field trips. Before we get into this, there was a number of questions.
Mr. Blackmore, could you come up to the microphone?
Before we get into, there was a number of questions left hanging at our last meeting about field trips, and I believe Nate is going to lay some of that out, address some of those for us.
I'll start it out and then we'll see if anybody else has questions. I know one of the questions was how much time is spent at the Capitol because of, we need to make sure it aligns with the curriculum.
How much time actually going in
Yes.
the Capitol building? I think we're there about an hour and a half, 2 hours inside the building, and then there's also a portion of the walking tour that takes us around the outside of the building. It may not have been on the itinerary that you saw, in large part because they're still building that itinerary for us for next year. Not everything has been booked yet, so there may be some things that weren't there yet.
And one of the other big picture questions was the use of the company that we have now.
Right.
You know, are there other companies? What's been your experience?
Right. So there was a time that we had used another company, and we're not all that satisfied with that company. We've been with Hemisphere, I think, now for the last 8 or 9 years. To answer your question, yeah, there are other companies out there. Certainly, there's some advantages to building relationships, and we're a school that's very much involved with the planning of that trip, and they've been able to accommodate all of our requests. And you know, it takes some time to get things the way that you want them to be. And we have been very happy with Hemisphere, so we haven't gone looking for another company to use. I'm not sure if that answers
They
the
actually
question.
helped us out a lot too when we had to reschedule it from Hurricane Sandy.
Some of the differences between Hemisphere and some of the other companies that I've worked with, you know, they help coordinate the step-on guides. The relationships that they have with those step-on guides are very helpful. They're people who do a great job while we're in DC of helping us with the tour. There's always somebody from the company there right next to me at any given moment to help me with any of the logistics I might need help with. If there's an issue getting into a restaurant because the reservation, you know, they're not honoring it or they haven't planned for they just help sort out everything so that it runs very smoothly while we're there. So we've been very happy with that. That wasn't always the case with some of the companies we've used in the past.
I'm interested to hear that the school's very involved in creating the itinerary. That's good. It's
Yeah.
something that you think reflects the curriculum and will appeal to the kids.
Right, and if there is something new or something different, you know, we always tweak things year to year. But the good news is they've got folks who are working with other schools and they can reflect on their feedback and their experience at some of the different locations. A good example would be the museum. That was a place we used to go to before the renovations. It wasn't all that great. It wasn't a place I had the opportunity to go to when they redid the museum. It's one of the best stops on our trip now. It's amazing. So they were able to provide us with some feedback and some ideas as we plan for each year.
Okay.
Anybody else have any questions? Thank you.
That's it.
Appreciate it. Okay. So, lost my spot. So, Dr. Sophie's recommending approval of the field trips for the 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th grades, as discussed at the Committee of the Whole and in alignment with board policy that specifically states that all trips are Field trips that are overnight and or out of state must be approved by the board. So with that in mind, may I have a motion to approve the 5th grade outdoor education field trip to Atwood Park in Rockford, Illinois, the 6th grade spring field trip, the 7th grade outdoor education field trip to East Troy, Wisconsin, and the 8th grade Washington, D.C. field trip.
So moved. Second.
Okay, Rich, can we please have a roll call vote?
Richard Haig, yes. John Rosen.
Yes.
Susan Ryder.
Yes.
Mark Berry.
Yes.
Leanne Charlotte.
Yes.
Judy Gottlieb.
Yes.
The motion is approved. Next item, 9F. Approval of food service vendor for kiddos. Mr. Khan and possibly Ann Stewart, if we have questions, are available to answer questions about kiddos food service program that we had a presentation on last week. And so if anybody has any questions or concerns, they can address them now.
Do we have exactly who the suppliers are and what the items are?
No, they would, if approved, they would work with our PTO and our local vendors to establish a relationship and to select the menus.
And I suppose if they're not well liked, that people won't take advantage of this service, right? It's completely
It's a voluntary
People
service.
opt in or opt out
Right.
as the weeks go by, right?
Parents, it's a lunch option for parents that they can partake in or choose not to.
And I think the other part is PTO is very aware of, the vendors in the community and where kids like to eat from and where they're not. So, and if something happens with one of the vendors, we can change the vendor.
Right.
So
We did take a field trip to one of the Deerfield schools on Monday to witness the lunch in action, and it went very well. I think the PTO was impressed, and the vendor that was there that day, we were standing there, and Michelle was there with us because she wanted to show us around, and somebody felt like that there was a soup that was missing from the order, and she called their vendor, and before we left the building, the guy drove up in his car with an extra soup. So I mean, the vendors are very responsive, and I think that's because they have a good relationship with them, and really the vendors that they select are people who want to work with them. So our PTO has expressed that there are lots of local restaurants that they've had good experiences with currently that they'd want to keep, and kiddos would work with those vendors first, most likely they would be able to reach an agreement. They negotiate price and terms and menus, and if they work well with our PTO, the chances are they would work very well with them. So we would be able to retain a lot of our existing vendors. And they also she had given them some examples of other vendors that she uses in other districts, and the PTO representatives that were there also expressed an interest in those and said, "Oh, I've heard of those places, and that would be great to be able to serve food from them as well." So
It sounds like PTO is doing a lot of the work for this program.
yes.
But the PTO is not getting much of the.
Well, they're using it as a fundraiser. This would be replacing their current food fundraiser. It would also be a way for them to be in the schools and help out the school and volunteer and be involved in the lunch program. They've also spoken.
Every day.
This would be an everyday thing. They've also spoken about recycling programs and some other things that they would like to work with Margaret to implement in the school.
't. I think it sounds great. Like I said, I wish you had it 10 years ago. So
I think you should do it for seniors.
I like the convenience factor.
Okay.
I imagine that kids will respond well to it. One reservation I have is that there's nothing in what she said or what they provided us in writing that guarantees anything about the quality of the food. And I think I understood that they'll be offering some different options so people can choose. But I would be sorry to see the school providing something that didn't at least offer some options that were, hot dogs, pizza, and chicken nuggets every day just isn't good for you.
Well, and those were some of the examples that were given, but they do have some pretty complete menus with other things. And our PTO moms will be very involved in the menus, so it's our moms that are going to be
That'll help design
helping
that.
decide what food to serve to the kids. So.
And I know kids flock toward that food. I'm not saying that, they should never eat it. I just would hope that there's, some balance to that. And
Right.
if we see, 6 months or a year into this, that really isn't happening, that it really just is like French fries and hot dogs, then I hope we'll review it and decide not to continue doing it.
We do, as Susan said, we do have the option to. We're not locked into this. This is
Right.
an agreement. The parents are ordering the food. It's being delivered by the restaurant, so there's no real agreement as to the food with us and kiddos. But we don't have to continue using them, or if we can help set the menu. So if there are things in the menu we want to avoid, we can express our opinions, and they will accommodate us.
Do we expect an uptick in the number of people who take advantage, for lack of a better word, of the free lunch program that are currently not doing so?
I would expect one. I think the feedback that we've gotten this year is that
It's all like Julie.
a lot of the lunches aren't eaten. So, or I've even had people who would sign up for the lunch and then call back and say, well, my son or daughter doesn't like the lunch, so we're not going to take it. And so those kids are either not eating or they're not getting as much of a benefit as they should or could.
Jay, what I might suggest is maybe in December, or maybe not around the holiday, but we do a kind of a mid-year survey monkey and ask parents how they feel, what suggestions they have, and kind of, I call it a dipstick, just kind of find out how everybody's feeling about it, to make any mid-course corrections if needed, or to pat everybody on the back and saying, this is great, maybe we should consider this at the middle school.
And they do take orders in quarters or trimesters, so that you don't necessarily order for an entire year at once. You do have the option of ordering for 2 weeks out. You could continually update your orders, but they also will open up the system so that you can place from now to Thanksgiving or now to the end of the year, and then come back in January and change it so that now place your orders for January to spring break. So if there are things that we want to change after the first couple of months, we can implement that in the second wave or the third wave. They just need enough time to talk to the vendors and make those changes.
Do you recall if they had the ability, speaking like a mid-year evaluation, if they had the ability to run some reports to show us the trends of the number of users and how that's changed over time, and the menu purchases?
They do provide reports. I'm sure they can give us information down to menu item.
Okay. Good.
And I do think adding a survey in there would probably be a good idea.
And we will get the results as well. So financially, if PTO is not doing well, or if people aren't eating lunches, then we probably wouldn't continue the program.
And I'm sure the PTO will give us their 2 cents on how it's going at that time as well. Great. All right, anybody else?
Great partnership.
I have reservations about this rubber stamping on a food program, that there's no nutritional knowledge about what's going to happen. For a school board, I think that's a little short-sighted. So.
Anybody else? All right. May I have a motion to approve kiddos as the food service vendor for the Lake Bluff Elementary School for the 2015-2016 year as recommended by the administration?
So moved.
Second.
Rich, can we please have a roll call vote?
John Rosen.
Yes.
Susan Ryder.
Yes.
Mark Berry.
Yes.
Dan Charlie.
Yes.
Julie Gaccio.
Yes.
Richard Hay. No.
The motion is approved. Moving on to item 9G, approval of amended school calendar with last day of school stipulated. And basically what we're doing there, let's see, we are, I think I have so much paper in front of me, I'm just making sure I'm getting all my notes and all your highlights too. We are hoping that we'll not need to use any more emergency days, so it is necessary to approve the amended 2014-15 school calendar and stipulate the last day of school so parents in the community can begin their summer planning. Dr. Sophie is recommending approving the amended calendar showing emergency days used as February 16th, 2015 for the closing on January 8th, April 6th, 2015 for the closing on February 2nd, June 5th, 2015 for the closing on January 7th, and our last day of school will be Friday, June 5th, 2015, and this will be an early release day. Any questions about what we're about to vote on for the revised calendar? All right, may I have a motion to approve the amended school calendar for 2014-2015 showing emergency days as I just described?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call vote, please, Rich.
Susan Ryder.
Yes.
Mark Berry.
Yes.
Ann Charlotte.
Yes.
Julie Gottlieb.
Yes.
Richard Hay. Yes.
Motion is
Yes.
motion is approved. Thank you. Moving on to item 9H, the personnel report. I'm going to review the highlights of this personnel report, and first note that this personnel report reflects no net change in FTE. And what we are recommending is a leave of absence, approval of leave of absence for Janelle Carney at the middle school for family issues. We're recommending hires of Michael Niles for 4th and 5th multi-age at the elementary school effective August 12th to replace Sarah Maxino, who's moving to 2nd grade. Hiring Jacqueline Thibodeau in 2nd grade at the elementary school effective August 12th, 2015. To hire Melissa Pasquesi in 1st grade at the elementary school effective August 12th, 2015, replacing Jacqueline Rote, who has resigned effective last day of school. Hiring Kelly Sheridan to the 5th grade at the elementary school effective August 12th, 2015, replacing Julie Hockman, who resigned effective last day of school. Hiring Katie Marzin as an art teacher at the elementary school effective August 17, 2015, replacing Tom Beck, who's retiring at the end of this year. Hiring Fred Koch as a .6 FTE music teacher at the elementary school effective August 17th, 2015. He's a rehired part-timer as approved on the 2015 Certified Staffing Plan. And hiring Sally Verdon as a .8 FTE special ed teacher at the elementary school effective August 17th, 2015. And this is a rehire part-time as approved on the 2015-16 Certified Staffing Plan. Okay, given that summary of changes in personnel and no net change in FTE, is there any additional questions or comments for the administration?
No.
I have a motion to approve the personnel report for April as presented by the administration, and I have so just described.
So moved.
Roll call vote, please, Rich.
Mark Berry.
Yes.
Ann Charlotte.
Yes.
Julie Gottlieb.
Yes.
Richard Hay. Yes. John.
Yes.
Susan.
Yes.
The motion is approved. Item 9I, consent agenda. So in tonight's consent agenda, we are including closed session minutes for March 24th, 2015. Regular meeting minutes of March 24th, 2015. Closed session minutes from April 14th, 2015. Committee of the whole meeting minutes of April 14th, 2015. The P card report, the bills payable report, and the March treasurer's report. Would anybody like to pull any of those items from the consent agenda for further discussion?
No.
No.
So given that, may I have a motion to approve the consent agenda for April 28th, 2015 as presented by the administration?
So moved.
Second.
Second. So roll call vote, please, Rich.
Leanne Charlotte.
Yes.
Julie Gottlieb.
Yes.
Richard Hay. Yes. John Rosen.
Yes.
Susan Ryder.
Yes.
Mark Berry.
Yes. Motion is approved. That is our voting items for the night. Moving on to item 10, FOIA requests. We have received 2 FOIA requests from David Giuliani regarding the costs associated with the Midwest Suburban Superintendent's Conference, and a commercial FOIA request from Charlene Roche of Smart Procure regarding electronic copy of purchase orders from January 1st, 2010, and a listing of vendors. there anything you'd like to add to that, Jean?
Just please note that one of the FOIAs was over 800 pages long, so we didn't even upload it for you. If you would like to come in and review it, you are free to come in at any point, but it's 800 pages, so we didn't upload it.
Okay. Moving on to agenda item 11, public comments. We always conclude our wrap up our meetings with the opportunity for public to make comment to the board. If anybody would like to do so, please address the board. And we'd like to have Ann Stewart. We recognize Ann Stewart to address the board.
Hi there, just in regards to the kiddos catering, I do want you to know that the PTO has been very involved in picking vendors, and the person who's currently running the program, she came on to run the food day program because she was frustrated with the quality of food. And so she specifically has been working with Donati's and then Kenny from Graffiti Grill to ensure that the quality of food is very good and is going to be healthy, more healthy than what was currently being used. So if that alleviates any concern, she is going to be involved until they choose the different vendors for this. So I'm confident that there will be good choices, and again, it is optional, so I'm hoping that parents will appreciate the fact that they can choose to do it, or they certainly don't have to if they're not satisfied.
I do appreciate all the work the PTO is doing going into this. It's just, it seems to be very vague right now.
And I can see from your perspective that it is, but just know that we're on top of it, and we are going to be pushing Michelle from Kiddos to ensure that they are using good vendors with the quality foods that we hope our kids have.
Thank you. Okay, and our last item second to last item in the regular meeting tonight will be to have our Secretary Pro Tem, Mr. Haig, shall read the canvass of the election received from the Lake County Elections Committee. And I don't think you need to read it all, just the part about our board. There's a lot of other boards out there.
Thank you for that.
Lake Bluff District, 65 members of the Board of Education. Susan H. Ryder garnered 267 votes. Mark G. Berry got 255, and Leanne Shauna got 257, and there was no one else who got any votes.
That was a good summary.
Any discussion or comment or questions about that?
So then Richard has to say he declares that the three of you are winners.
That's it.
Just say, I declare that you're three winners.
I declare you three
So,
Okay.
all right, we're approaching the end here. So, I know. I just got so many pages of things here. I want to make sure I get to it. All right. So the last thing we're going to do in our regular meeting today is we're going to adjourn. We're going to ask for a motion to adjourn sign die. And I don't know if I pronounced that right, but if anybody is interested, to adjourn sign die, from the Latin without day, it means without assigning a day for a further meeting or hearing. It's to adjourn an assembly. Sign die is to adjourn it for an indefinite period. A legislative body such as us adjourns sign die when it adjourns without reappointing a day in which to appear or assemble. So we're doing this temporarily while we reorganize, and then we will reconvene in a matter of minutes. So, may I have a motion to adjourn the board meeting to allow a transitional period to reorganize the recently elected members of the Board of Education?
So moved. Second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So we are adjourned, sign die, and then we're going to do some magic and reappear under I don't know if we do musical chairs. So we have a reorganizational meeting, and John is going to. Do I announce it, or
You have to
John
select the president pro tem, I think.
That comes next.
Oh.
First you're going to do this one. So you can just read that. John can read it.
Well, I want to start first. I need to be official and say now, thank you for attending the Lake Bluff School District 65 Board of Education reorganizational meeting for April 28, 2015. And the oath of office will be now given to new members, but that is by
John Merritt.
John is going to assume the role of president. Do we need to make a motion for?
Right now, he's just gonna swear you guys in,
Okay.
then you're gonna call to order, and then you're gonna select the president.
Okay, so I hand the meeting over to John.
And John, you may wanna read why you're doing it.
Okay. Lake Bluff 65 board policy dictates that the president, vice president, or secretary leads the oath of office to new members. With Mark being a new member and taking the oath with Leanne and Susan, and with Christine gone, I will be administering the oath of office tonight.
Okay, let's right to the group.
Do you want to do it as a group?
Let's do it as a group, yeah.
You don't have it memorized?
I did, but I don't want
I
to show.
memorized it, but I don't want to make them look bad.
Thank you.
Do we
So-
just stand or do I?
You can be seated, we'll do it informally, okay. Okay, after, please repeat after me. I, in your name,
I, Susan Ryder,
do solemnly swear that I will faithfully discharge the duties of the office of member of the Board of Education of Lake Bluff School District 65.
Do solemnly swear
swear that I will faithfully discharge the duties of the office of member of the Board of Education of Lake Bluff School District 65.
In accordance with the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution of the State of Illinois, and the laws of the State of Illinois, to the best of my ability.
In accordance with the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution of the State of Illinois, and the law of the State of Illinois, to the best of my ability.
Now, do you have to raise your hand like this? I did that when I was sworn in. We're halfway through.
That's okay, I'm gonna tell you guys it's okay.
It's okay,
okay.
it's
We're good,
okay.
all right.
Jeez, I thought I screwed
I
up.
saw them up, they just didn't have them up higher.
I further swear that I shall respect taxpayer interests by serving as a faithful protector of the school district assets.
I further swear that I shall respect taxpayer interests by serving as a faithful protector of the school district's assets.
I shall encourage and respect the free expression of opinion by my fellow board members.
I shall encourage and respect the free expression of opinion by my fellow board members
And others who seek a hearing before the board while respecting the privacy of students and employees.
and others who will seek a hearing before the board while respecting the privacy of students and employees.
I shall recognize that a board member has no legal authority as an individual and that decisions can be made only by a majority vote at a public board meeting.
I shall recognize that a board member has no legal authority as an individual and that decisions can be made only by a majority vote at a public board meeting.
And I shall abide by majority decisions of the board while retaining the right to seek changes in such decisions through ethical and constructive channels.
And I shall abide by majority decisions of the board while retaining the right to seek changes in such decisions through ethical and constructive channels.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
And welcome back.
We're back.
Okay,
Now, Mark.
I would like to volunteer to be the president pro tem, if John and Richard will approve me. I think we can move this along, very good. Okay.
I approve.
Thank you. All right, any public comment as we move along? No public comment, very good. Okay, the next thing we need to do here, and correct me, Jean, of course, if I'm getting this wrong, but from what I understand is we will elect the officers for the newly constituted board.
Correct.
My understanding is that we have only one person who is interested or has volunteered to serve in these positions. Mark Berry has expressed an interest in remaining as president. John Morozen has expressed an interest in remaining as vice president, and Leanne Charlo has expressed an interest in serving as secretary. Are there any other people members of the board that would like to volunteer for a position?
Other than those mentioned?
Other than those mentioned, right.
The only one left is Richard. Oh, Susan.
Rich, you look like you're gonna jump in.
We're struggling down here.
So,
Okay, so because these are all uncontested slots, then I believe what I can do is simply announce that everybody is in the position. So Mark Berry is now declared to be the board president. John Morozen is now declared to be the vice president, and Leanne Charlo is now declared to be the secretary. I understand we also need to appoint an IASB representative and an alternate.
And
Now, I don't know who stepped up for those positions.
I think it goes back to me now.
And Mark can take over from this.
Okay, very good.
Thank you for your continued support and your efficiency in the way you run meetings. And I think we're keeping an eye on you for the next time. So we're moving on to, we need to appoint an ISB representative and alternative for the 2015-16 year. Typically that has been for the board president to do that, and I'm glad to accept that role. So if you want to make a motion to appoint Mark Barry as the ISB rep for the 2015-16, go ahead. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, so I'll be the ISB rep. Then next, we have our board calendar, which you've all seen and we've approved. So we need to designate the meeting date, place, and time, and that is something that I do. Is that what that means? The newly elected board president?
Yes.
And so we've already approved it, and it's in print and on the website. So may I have a motion that the meetings of the Board of Education will be held as per the attachment, and the exceptions to this meeting pattern will be approved and authorized only by the Board of Ed of Lake Bluff School District 65.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so the meetings have now been designated, take the date, place, and time. And then finally, we have a discussion item for committees of the board. You all have an attachment which summarizes the current committees, and we just need to go through that list, and there's a couple places where it's obvious to make some changes. Our representatives to the Alliance, starting with the first one, you guys all have this handout.
Yeah, I have it somewhere.
It's in the board packet for the second meeting. We can share if you want.
Okay, go ahead.
So the first item is, the first committee is people who go to the occasional Alliance meeting, and in the past it's been Rich, Hague, and Christine. Oh yeah, there you go. Look at this movement. So if we'd like to, if Rich would be interested in continuing that role, if not, we can find 2 new members, but if Rich, you okay with it? And if somebody would like to step in where Christine is no longer able to do that.
I'll step in.
All right, so we'll put Julie in for the Alliance. At the Insurance Committee, currently or historically, it's been myself and John Marsden. I'd be glad to do it again.
Yep, I would.
John, so we're good with that. Joint Shared Services, which is also known as the Tri-District Committee, between 65, 67, 115. Is currently Leanne and John. Would you guys like to continue?
There's a lot of work this past year, but I think I'll step up again.
You good? Okay. Lake Bluff Park District Land Use Committee currently is Julie.
Oh, yeah.
You're in?
I'm letting that one go.
All right. The next one is the Negotiations Committee, and it's not likely that will come up, but in case there's some significant changes in the law that require a reopener. We currently have myself, John, and Susan as the alternate. I'm glad to continue in that role.
I would too.
Simple enough.
All right.
I'd be glad to.
That's easy. The next item is the NSSED. We all have to appoint a member to the governing board. I'll be glad to continue in that role, but I may be looking for a way out of that sometime during the year.
Everybody else wanted that though too, Mike.
Yeah. I know there's been a huge clamoring to get involved with. Policy Committee, we currently have Julie, Leanne, and Susan. If you guys would like to stay involved.
Be glad to continue in that capacity.
Stay. Superintendent Evaluation Committee, this is where we get together and I forget the exact timing, but we take a look at the evaluation tool that we used and retool with the tool as necessary. Currently it's myself, Leanne, Julie, and Christine, so we can do it with 3, but if anybody else would like to be involved,
I'll do it.
So John Marsden as well. Down the bottom, technology representative for the Lake Bluff School District is currently John, and
if Kevin will continue to have me.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Right, easy. And then we have the Tri-Board Advisory Committee between the Park District, the Village, and the school. It's been myself and Christine, and often Rich has filled in that role. And you'd like to continue? That was very easy. That was probably the fastest committee assignment worksheet we've ever gone through.
A+, or it's like a well-oiled machine.
The second last item is for public comments. If anybody would like to address the board, this brand new board. If not, we're gonna move on. And may I have a motion to adjourn this meeting at 8:50
So moved.
p.m.
Second.
All in favor of adjournment?
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank
All right.
you.
Susie, welcome back. Thank you. Richard, great job.
Oh, yeah.
Nicely done.